Good evening.
Good evening.
We are extremely pleased that you are here. It is nice to come together for the purpose of co-creating, is it not? What brings you here? What are you wanting to talk about?
Good evening, Abraham. I have other questions here, but something I'd like to discuss a little bit before I get to my questions that I've thought about all week. I had a letter come in to me today in the mail, and it was just a little while ago. And as I sat there and I opened this letter and read it, not really reading it, just skimming it, I had this great anger come up in me because the letter was very derogatory, I guess you could say. And it took me a long time to get on a positive note about this. And now I know as I went into the segment of opening the mail, I did not segment myself. I mean, who would think I needed to segment myself when I opened my mail? But, I did get over it. But why is this still happening to me when I'm so clear of my intentions to have a joyful life? Why? I know the anger is a message from my inner being saying, no, you're looking at this in the wrong direction.
That is not the only thing that the feeling of negative emotion is saying. We are extremely pleased that you have begun here at this point, because it is really the point of understanding that as a group you are coming to. When you feel negative emotion, it is your guidance system, agreed?
I agree.
Your guidance system explaining to you that somewhere in your beliefs or somewhere in your blocks of thought that are within you, there is some point of sensitivity.
Right.
In other words, if your guidance system is not working, how would you ever know where conflicting beliefs are?
True.
And so, do not be hard on yourself or feel that you are doing something wrong or that you have not come far enough when something brings forth a negative response from you. Instead, acknowledge, my guidance system is working, and there is a point of sensitivity that I'm wanting to get rid of. In other words, Esther's experience with her grandparents and many members of her family, as one by one they die of cancer here and there. So for a very large part of Esther's experience, she has had great fear of this hereditary disease. And so now, as she watches the television and sees a commercial regarding the subject of cancer, and she feels that negative emotion coming up inside of her, what a beneficial thing, for her inner being is saying to her, there is some block of thought still within you, in other words, some point of attraction still, that is not in harmony with your current desire. It is a wonderful thing, because then and only then are you able to take your point of pivot, focus upon the positive aspects, thereby bridge or alter or change that existing belief.
Right.
You have heard us, we've talked at great lengths that you are the creator. And then we have modified that to say what we mean when we say you are the creator of your experience is you are the attractor of your experience. And then we have taken it further by saying the block of thought that you hold is your point of attraction. Now, so many of our physical friends really think that the words that are rolling around in their mind that could roll right off their tongue equals blocks of thought. And we say in most cases what you would say or what you are rolling around in verbal fashion in your mind is not what the block of thought is. You cannot verbalize or roll around in your mind the entire block of thought that you hold. There simply is not enough time. One word such as relationship could take days to express the block of thought that is within you. And so a negative emotion is, or any emotion, is the indicator of what your block of thought is. In other words, at least whether it is something you are wanting to attract or something that you are not wanting to attract.
does the feeling come before the thought? The feeling and the emotion come before the words or the thought that come from it?
We are going beyond anything that you have heard from us before. And so relax and enjoy as you are hearing it. The block of thought within you exists. When you are stimulated to a new thought or new awareness of it, then it surfaces. And as it is surfacing, that is when the emotional response comes forth. In other words, it takes some sort of stimulation in your now to bring it forth. And so we would say the thought has come first, and the response to it is next. But now, the part that is new for you, we're wanting you to understand that you are magnetically attracting unto you. And so, those who deceive themselves by saying, no, this is what I believe, even though they keep, in other words, Esther can say, I'm not worried about cancer at all. Yeah. Cancer is not part of my experience. But as long as she is still having that negative feeling every time she hears the word, she is deceiving herself. And her point of attraction is not what her words speak, but something else, you see. Yeah. And so your guidance system is there to very perfectly help you identify what your true point of attraction is, so that if you find yourself someplace where you are not wanting to be, now what is the best thing to do when you feel the negative emotion? Stop and say, this is an important issue. What is it that I want? And then look for the positive aspects within what you are currently living until you are able to bridge or modify those beliefs. They must be dealt with. In other words, they will keep coming up. Anything that is a conflict that is within you will keep coming up. And that is very nice, is it not? So that you don't just keep attracting blindly.
Then I have to decide what my conflict is through asking myself. I mean, I don't want to focus on it. I want to see the positive aspects.
You know how if you have a sore spot on your arm somewhere, a bruise or something, and when you touch around it, it is not as intense, but when you touch on it, you say, ah, there it is. That is the way these negative beliefs or conflicting beliefs or opposing thoughts within your bank of thought feel to you. In other words, for just a moment you can ponder around it until you can find the sensitive place. Now, we would say, without hearing from you what the content of the letter is, that someone is disapproving of something that you are doing.
Well, the letter was about, it was from a barrel racing association that I belong to, and I just joined to kind of help the group girls through my fees just to enter the association to help, stimulate a barrel racing organization in this area. And I didn't get to go to too many of them because I go to a lot of places all over the state. And I sent them a $20 donation. And then I get this letter, and they said that you're a member not in good standings because you didn't work at our jackpots, and you also owe this donation. So I'm going, I mean, it hurts me real bad when somebody says that I'm not in good standings with something. I mean, it just brings up a real big resistance. It's just something I have to work out on myself. But
when you stop for a moment and you analyze what is bothering you about it, first of all, was it a computer-generated letter, a form letter?
It was a form letter.
Something that went out to everyone under those conditions, and so it was not something that was personally targeted at you. But you are wanting exceptions to be made. You are wanting them to understand your point of view.
Right.
What we are saying to you is that usually if you will stop and recognize that the feeling of anger is not what you are wanting, and then you will think through it and focus upon what it is you do want, you will... Esther heard someone on the television the other night talking about the reunification of Germany. And those whose property who had been confiscated were now reclaiming some of it. But they were having quite a struggle because those who were behind the desks were not very helpful, as they were part of the old Germany, really not eager to give the new Germany a very good start. And one very wise man was being interviewed, and he said, how do you feel about them giving you a hard time? And he said, you must understand, yesterday capitalism was wrong, and today it's right, and they're just confused. Now, that is the way, or that is what is at the root of most of your arguments with others, particularly something that is computer generated. In other words, it is not an attack on you. It is, and you are not understanding their perspective from which they have offered it, and they are not understanding your perspective from which you are not in good standing. And so once you have thought it through, then you have bridged the belief. In other words, then you are not, it is not something that will come up again.
Right.
Then you could receive another letter a week later just like it, and you would say, oh, another one of these, and have no response to it. You are following?
But my temper gets, when somebody, it was kind of funny because I had been so mellow, at that point until I read that letter, and it was just like...
What do you believe is at the heart of it? In other words, what is it that you want that in that moment you had lack of?
Oh, to be in good standings with...
In other words, you want their respect?
Yeah.
You want them to like you? You want their appreciation? You want their approval?
I guess.
You want their approval. That warning bell will ring on a regular basis, because you will find it very difficult to be in good standing with everyone, you see.
Oh, I understand.
That would drive you crazy, would it not? To be in good standing with everyone who wants you to conform to their rules. And so as you realize that what is at the heart of your anger is you want approval, then you stop and think about it, and you realize you really don't need the approval of anyone else.
No.
You know why you do what you do. You know that there is not a fairer person on the face of the earth than you. And so then you do not feel any more injustice about it once you are clear about what you are wanting, you see.
I have to laugh about it. It's really kind of funny,
It is getting funnier all the time.
I know, you got me on the hot seat here. oh, God.
We put it to a vote. We put her on the hot seat.
One of my questions my specific questions that I had is I want to have a clear understanding how I can allow my inner being to express themselves through me physically.
Be more specific.
Oh, Jerry was speaking of pulling his weeds, which I got such a kick out of his little story about his pulling his weeds, and you had told him that it was a way for him to find himself, to utilize his inner being, like his inner being would assist him in helping find weeds, and also assist him in help him understand he'll see something as long as he believes it's there. And
you are wanting to be more intuitive? Is that another way of stating it?
I guess no. What I would like to understand is through all this blendedness, and since I'm a receiver of thought, how can I utilize this blendedness to the ultimate way? Should I try to get my inner being to assist me in a certain talent, or...
Here is the process. Make a decision that you want something, and then follow the inspiration that comes, being sensitive to the way that you feel. For the way that you feel will be your guidance upon the path of what you are wanting. So it is a matter of making more decisions about what you are wanting, and then being more sensitive to the guidance that comes forth. You are receiving clearly many thoughts and much inspiration, the intuition. Many of your movements are inspired from your broader perspective. And so we would say, do more of it deliberately. In other words, much of it goes unnoticed, because it is broader intentions that you have set forth, and so you cannot notice as clearly. You're not aware of the guidance as keenly as it is being offered. But as you make more specific statements of what you are wanting, and then pay more attention to what you're living. The examples are endless. Jerry and Esther were walking the other evening and saw a grasshopper, a very large one, and Esther said, would you like me